Okay, back to Eov. So we're going to start by reviewing what we did last time, which was very complicated. Okay, but I think I found a way to explain it, and then hopefully we'll start understanding what the Satan is today. Okay, because it flows directly from what we were doing. Okay, so we were doing the Rambam in the Moreh 3:8, and if you have the handout, you could take it out if you want, but if not, everything will be on screen as usual. Quick review, just this is the same bullet point summaries that we had. Okay, number one, physical things are only subject to deterioration or like decay or corruption because of their matter, not because of their form. Okay, that was the point that we discussed a lot. All right, and that's the point I want to get back to. Leah, I have an answer for you. Okay, then we said that matter is constantly casting off one form and taking on another. And anyone remember what the Rambam's analogy for that was? Or first of all, let me ask a more basic question. Give me an example of what we mean by matter is casting off one form and taking on another. Like, give me like a real world example of that.
Like a table. I mean, the wood starts off as plank, so that's its form. Then it turns into a table, which becomes its form. Then eventually it may rot and then turn into earth or whatever, which becomes its form.
Okay, good, right? So it is a when you have a rotting table or rotting wooden structure, it's the matter of wood in the form of a table, but then the matter, again, it's easier if you personify it. The matter is like trying to get away from that form and take on another form. So what did the Rambam compare that to? I'll give you a hint. It was a relationship mashal.
A promiscuous wife.
Promiscuous wife, right? So what's the idea of the mashal? Or what's the mashal part?
She's like constantly moving around from man to man, but she's like always with someone.
Exactly. So she's it's not a promiscuous woman, it's a promiscuous wife because she's married, but she's always looking for another man. Okay. So to matter and form are always married. Matter is never without form, but it's always looking for another form. Okay. Then in the case of man, this is the point that we really got talked about a lot. All physical defects stem from the matter, not from the form. Okay. So Leah, here's my response to you. Okay, I thought about this all morning, and here's what I came up with. Okay, so first of all, tell me if this is an accurate one-line expression of your question. Okay, you said when physical things deteriorate, it's the form that's deteriorating, not the matter, right?
Right, and then you resolve that by saying the form is abstract.
Okay, I think I resolve it even better now. Okay, so here we go, and I even found it. Okay, I'll show you in a second. So imagine a plastic mold, okay, used to make a chocolate Easter bunny. Now, you probably didn't grow up with chocolate Easter bunnies like I did, but you know what they are, right? Right, so it's like in the form of a mold, right? They make them with a mold. They pour it into the mold. So then imagine the Easter bunny melting, okay? And in order to sear this into your memory, I found an highly artistic video, okay, which is 2.5 minutes, which we're gonna watch, okay, just to make sure that like this, you remember this forever, okay. And let me just optimize this share computer sound. Hold on, here we go. Can you hear the sound when I did that just now? Okay, here we go. We'll watch it now. Sorry, but okay. Mission accomplished. Yeah. Okay. All right. So what does this have to do with anything? Let's go here. Hold on just 1 second. Okay. So here is the nimshal. Okay. The mold that you use to make the bunny is the tsura, is the form, and the chocolate is the chomer. Okay. That's the material or the matter. All right. Which one melts? Is it the form or is it the matter? It is the matter, right? The chocolate melts, but the mold used to make it remains perfect, okay, and unchanged. So too, when physical things deteriorate, whether it's an apple rotting or a human being, when I say deteriorate again, I don't even mean like rotting, but like say like an apple rotting or a human being being sick or suffering an injury. So what is it that is deteriorating or losing its or moving in any way? It's the material. So the design of the organism, which is objective, doesn't change, but the matter that is embodying that design is pulling away from that design. And yeah, like we said last time, you have to have the premise here that like the design is objective and actually exists, which again, ignore evolution for 1 second here. Certainly in like the world of physics, then that's definitely true. Okay, so does that help at all?
I like that, mashallah.
Okay, good. Yeah. Okay, so now let's move on and deal with something a little bit more complicated here. Okay, so so that was where we left off last time. That's the end of the review. Any other questions on this before we go on to the new part? And again, questions will come up later on because we're going to be talking about form and matter a lot still. Okay, so all of man's acts of disobedience and sins are consequent upon his matter and not upon his form, whereas all his virtues are consequent upon his form. For example, man's comprehension of his creator, meaning understanding God, his mental representation of every intelligible, meaning like your the way that you think about ideas, his control of his desire and his anger, his thought on what ought to be preferred and what ought to be avoided, all of them are consequent upon his form. On the other hand, his eating and drinking and copulation and his passionate desire for these things, as well as his anger and all bad habits found in him, all of them are consequent upon his matter. Inasmuch as it is clear that this is so, and as according to what has been laid down by divine wisdom, it is impossible for matter to exist without form, and for any of the forms in question to exist without matter, and consequently, it was necessary that man's very noble form, which as we've explained is the Tselem Elohim and the Demus Elohim, should be bound to earthly, turbid, and dark matter, which calls down upon man every imperfection and corruption. He, Hashem, granted it, I mean the human form, power, dominion, rule, and control over matter, in order that it subjugate it, quell its impulses, and bring it back to the best and most harmonious state that is possible. Okay, that was a lot of stuff. Anyone catch the main point?
The Tselem Elohim is like our epitome of form, but because of our imperfections, which aren't like a divine substance, it's constantly not being in line with that form.
Okay, excellent. Very well said. Okay, so my one sentence summary here is all human sins and moral defects stem from matter, whereas all human virtues, meaning all your good qualities, stem from form. And if you want an analogy, don't worry, I'm not going to show you another video. An analogy here, okay, is think about training a dog. Okay, so picture the actual dog, like the living, breathing, physical dog as the material, and the good dog. When you say like good dog, right, you have an ideal in mind. There's the ideal good dog that like obeys all of commands and like doesn't go to the bathroom like in the house and like is obedient, right? So if you think about it, all bad dog behavior stems from the actual dog. The bad dog behavior doesn't stem from the ideal. It stems from like the actual physical dog that has its own like untrained impulses and stuff. So too, the animalistic part of the human being is the matter, and the seichel, the intelligence, is the tzura. That's the form. So all of our bad qualities and bad decisions and bad habits and everything stem from our animalistic, psychological, emotional part, physical part of our nature, and our good qualities stem from our tzelem Elokim.
I still don't want. I see why bad things stem from matter, but just as the bad things stem from matter, don't the good things stem from matter? Or the reason that isn't it not that they stem from matter? It's just that the reason that they're bad is because the matter is not living up to the form. It's not that it's.
That's actually a much better way to say it. Is that it's not that they're bad. It's that when we have bad things, it's because our matter is not in line with our form. But the ideal state is not to get rid of our matter. It's to align our matter with our form, which means to, as we say, like use your Yetzer Hara for Tov, to your Yetzer Hara Tov, right? And that's what. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
But doesn't that mean, aren't we stating though that that's inherently impossible to be always in line with your form?
So it's impossible to be always and perfectly in line with your form, and that's why it takes a constant effort and constant vigilance to like be and constant tshuva. We do lots of things to try to make sure that we are keeping our matter as in line with our form as possible, throughout our lives. But it's constant, right? It's not going to stay there naturally. Because what does the animalistic part of us want to do?
Deviate from it.
Deviate from it. Okay, good. And you know what? On that note, that is the perfect. You have no idea, Leah, how exactly perfect the exact word you chose was. Yep, exactly. This brings us to the Satan. Okay.
On the past thing. Okay.
Yes.
So. Wait. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So the form of a human, though, is not just the seichel, it's Elokim. It's also like the human, the actual physical. Oh, you're saying that's the matter?
Yeah. So no. So let me put this way. I think this will clarify it. Right? Is that the human being? When we talk about the human, like me or you, that is a combo of matter and form, right? But the true form of the human is the Tzelem Elokim. And we want the matter to be in line with that form as much as possible, even though it wants to resist it.
Then could you what exactly is the Tzelem Elokim? Because that's just a word to me. I don't really.
Yeah. So so functionally, it's the part of us that is drawn to thinking and to knowledge of abstract ideas for their own sake, and drawn to the objective good. That's the way that it expresses itself. When we're human, but to know what the form of the human being is in isolation, that's something we can't really know. Like the only time we are actually, when are we actually purely form?
We're not human, which is
when
we're
we die.
Which is when we die, right? Then our form separates from our matter, and our form is what goes into Olam Haba. That and that we can't really have a positive understanding of in the same way we can't know any non-physical thing. Like we can use terms to describe it, like our knowledge is what goes on to Olam Haba, or the thinking part of us goes on to Olam Haba, but we can't have any positive knowledge of what that means. Yeah.
But shouldn't the form also be the part of us that is like physical? It should be the Tzelem Elokim mixed with a being which has emotions and desires.
Yeah, so this is what the difficult thing is in thinking about the human being. One of the many difficult things is when you're talking, let's say, about a dog, the form of the dog is just its dogness, which is very, very which is very related, for lack of a better term, to its physicality, right? And when you're talking about the laws of nature or about malachim, they're pure form. They have no matter at all. But when you have a human, you have a hybrid creature, right? Is that we have a dual nature. We have an animalistic nature and we have a Tzelem Elokim. So if you looked at just the animalistic part of man, then it would be no different than talking about a dog. You could talk about it's its animalistic form, right? But when you're talking about a human, there's the form of our body, and then there's the form that makes us unique as creatures, which is our Tzelem Elokim, which is related to the body but different. In other words, we have like this dual nature that like if you had a human being, for example, who was who didn't have a Tzelem Elokim, let's say, for lack of a better term, let's say like in evolution, the last stage before like, you know, the primate became human, okay, right? If you look at that, that would be pure animal, okay? But now you have us, and we have a non-physical part of us that is what we're calling our true form, and understanding the relationship with those two gets really messy. So that's, I think, what your questions are grappling with, which is that on the one hand, you're saying like, shouldn't our full form include our physicality? Because we are physical and we're non-physical, you know? So yes, that's true, but we're striving to make our entire organism be governed by the truly human part of us, which is the Tzelem Elokim. And that's why we talk about like getting the Yetzer Hara in line with the Yetzer HaTov. A dog doesn't have to worry about the Yetzer Hara getting in line with its Yetzer HaTov, because number one, it's all Yetzer, so it's not even Ra, and it's automatically in line with the way that it was designed. With a human being, we have an animalistic part of us that's pulling us away from living like a Tzelem Elokim, and then we have a thinking part of us that's pulling us towards being a Tzelem Elokim. So the greatest state for us is to harmonize those two, but have the animalistic part following the Tzelem Elokim and not the other way around.
So, like, let's say, are you saying that you could define things into different forms? Like this same bottle could be either like a seltzer bottle, or it could take, or like it could be like a not a container, because I guess it's hard, but it could be two different forms. It is two different forms at the same time.
So in that sense, it's higher. We call forms and matter hierarchical. Like I think I gave the example before, but let's say like the you know, pieces of wood that make up the table. So the wood is matter in relation to the table, but then the table plus the chairs are matter in relation to dining room set. That's like a higher form that defines them. And then dining room set plus couch plus TV plus bed equals house furnishings. You know, they're matter to the house. So there are hierarchies as well. And you could look at the human body like that, or the human organism like that also.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's complicated to think about. And if that part didn't make sense to anyone, then don't worry about that, because that's not immediately essential for our purposes.
The Tzelem Elokim, though, the way we define it, isn't it more of like a function than a form? Like it has, like it does something, but it's not is something.
Yeah, so that's why when Ayala asked her question about what is the Tzelem Elokim, I answered by using the word it expresses itself or manifests itself, because it is hard to define it not based on its form. Just like it's hard to define, like when we were doing form and matter in terms of human inventions, it's hard to define the form independently of the function. Like a pen, what makes it a pen? Its ability to write. Or what makes a clock, its ability to keep and display time. You know, the form and the function are very related, and it's hard to verbally express it outside of that or to conceive of it, you know? So yeah, Leah, you're right. Is like, there is such a thing as the Tzelem Elokim in isolation, but that we only ever would see that in Olam Haba, and it's non-physical and we can't think of it. So we talk about it as like, how does the Tzelem Elokim manifest itself? It manifests itself in thinking and pursuing truth for its own sake, you know, grasping abstract ideas, exercising free will over our animalistic nature, etc.
So there is a perfect Tzelem Elokim.
There is a perfect Tzelem Elokim, but that really that's not something we ever encounter in real life. I guess the only thing that you would like have close to is if you talk to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was like almost entirely Tzelem Elokim, you know, except he still was a physical body, you know, but that's why like the Rambam says Moshe was like a malach, because he was almost not affected by physicality, you know. But you're not gonna find someone like that in you know, on Cornega Avenue, you know, or anywhere else on earth.
No, we know where you
live. Yeah. Okay, I don't live in Cornega. All right. Okay, so I just thought it was a funnier joke than saying, you know, off of Beach 9. All right. Anyway. Okay, so now we get to the Satan. Okay, so Do you remember the word I said that you used that was perfect, Leah?
Oh, deviate.
Deviate. Okay, so so you may be familiar, okay, and I know I think I've heard some of you quote this before. The key that Chazal give us for understanding what the Yetzer Hara is they say that there are three things that are all the same. Hold on a second, I'm getting a chat, and I bet this is Ayala telling me that her camera's not working. Maybe? No. Okay, changing battery. Okay, fine. All right. Close. Okay, so what do Chazal say? The Satan is also equal to two other things. Or has the Satan has two
Yetzer Hara
other
and Malach Hamavis.
Yetzer Hara and Malach Hamavis, right? So the statement is Hu Satan, Hu Yetzer Hara, Hu Malach Hamavis. The Satan, the evil inclination, the angel of death are all the same. Okay, so the question is, what does that mean? Okay, so Satan comes the word from the Shoresh sin tet he, which means, Leah, to deviate. Okay, so the root of Satan is to deviate, and I'm going to now define what the Satan is. Okay. Ready for it? This is going to be the biggest idea here, okay? Satan is the tendency of matter to deviate from form, okay, which again, you can think of as order and structure, and to move towards disorder and chaos, okay? And what's even better is several of you have used the modern scientific term for this, and you've actually used this in class. And I've tried to suppress my grin because, like, as soon as you said it, I just I wanted to shout from the rooftops that you got it, but I didn't want to prematurely spoil it. What's the modern term?
You're wearing a mask, so.
I know, but you can tell me smiling with my eyes. What is the modern term for descending towards disorder?
Discord?
Discord is a good term. That's not the word I'm looking for. It's a physics term.
No. Wait. The law of.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Should I give you the first letter?
Where everything goes towards the most chaotic, whatever.
Entropy.
Yeah.
Entropy. Okay, good. So the modern term is entropy. And I don't know, those of you who have learned about this in science, look, I don't remember learning about this in science when I was in high school. I have no idea what they teach about or when they teach this. So if this concept helps you, use it. If not, don't worry about mastering a completely new scientific concept. Okay, but entropy means that all matter is constantly moving towards chaos and disorder, okay? Or from structure to lack of structure. So, and the way, again, you don't have to think about this if you get freaked out by physics, okay? But Newton's second law of thermodynamics says that all physical things increase in entropy over time, meaning they move from a state of being highly ordered and structured towards a state of being disordered and chaotic, okay? And if you think about this, there are different examples you can give, but one example I found helpful when I was thinking about this is if you have a deck of cards that is arranged in order, when you first open up a pack of cards and it's all in order, and you shuffle it, okay, do you have a higher probability of the cards ending up disordered or ordered? Obviously disordered, right? The chances that you're going to shuffle it and it's going to end up in order is very, very rare, and that's true of all things in the universe, is that when they are in order, and then this is slightly different than what Newton's talking about, because Newton's talking about a tendency towards disorder, but everything in the universe, if you scramble it or jostle it or put it into some sort of motion, it tends to go towards disorder, not towards order, okay? And when you think about something, rotting, again, our friend the rotting apple, or the melting Easter bunny, now that we can add that to the group, it starts off as ordered, and then when that poor Easter bunny melted, it's not melting into a new structure, it's melting into a chaotic pile of goo, or the apple is decomposing into its basic elements, and the elements are not arranged it doesn't decompose into a new fruit, it decomposes into disordered matter, okay? So the law of entropy is a good modern term for this. And in the Rambam's time, they didn't understand this as a scientific law, but they still recognize it as a principle in the universe. Okay. So any questions on this? Yeah.
Would you say though that the Satan is a type of malach?
Yes, exactly. And in fact, what do we call it? The malach
Hamavis,
right? And this is now going into Eov, because who was the Satan in the mashal, okay, in the allegory? Who was the Satan hanging out with?
Oh, the Malachim, the
All of the other Malachim, all of the other Malachim, but there was one word that you used to differentiate the Satan from the other ones. Is it said the Malachim were standing before Hashem, and the Satan also came with them. So the also points to the fact that on the one hand, it is a Malach, and on the other hand, it is not like the other Malachim. Okay. So in fact, I'm going to tell you this mashal now. I think maybe it's on the PowerPoint later on, but I'll just tell it to you now because you brought it up. So remember, the Malachim, if you're talking about the universe, what are the Malachim in the universe? What's our term for the Malachim in the universe? Because again, and just to clarify the question, we said Malach could mean many things, but when you're talking about the universe, does the term
natural forces?
Natural forces, the laws of nature, right? Now, if you interviewed a Malach, okay, and you said, "Hey, Malach, what is your job description?" What would the Malach say? Okay, take gravity, for example. Okay, if you ask gravity, okay, not that you should be communicating with angels, but if you ask gravity, what do you do all day? What's your job description? What would gravity say?
Pull things down.
Okay, fine, to pull things down, right? So, but if you said, what do you do for the company? Okay, what do you do for the universe as a whole? Like, what is your job accomplishing? What are all of them going to say? Gravity, electromagnetic, force.
Make habitable conditions and make things run smoothly.
Okay, so habitable conditions is a very human centric answer, right? Or Earth centric answer, right? But to give structure to the universe, right? To make the universe structure. That's what the laws of nature are. That's what they do. Okay. But if you were mingling in that party with all the Malachim there, okay, and you were talking to them and saying, what's your job? What's your job? What's your job? And then you talk to the Satan, okay, and you said, hey, Satan, what's your job description? What would the Satan say?
Destroy the structure, which everyone else
Destroy the structure in the universe. Okay, good. But if you said, and then if you asked the Satan, but how is that good for the company? What do you think the Satan would say? In other words, just to put this into Nimshal terms, it's clear how the laws of nature are good for the universe because that's what keeps the universe structured. How is entropy good for the universe? Like, what purpose does it serve in the universe?
You can't structure something that's already structured. It has to like deviate from it to go back to it.
Okay. So this gets back to the way that the Satan would answer is he would belt out the song "The Circle of Life." Okay, meaning that if you just had Malachim and you had no Satan, okay, if you just had laws of nature but nothing that made anything deviate from anything, what would the universe look like? Describe what the universe would be in comparison to the universe we have now. If you didn't have entropy, if you didn't have anything that caused matter to deviate from form.
Everyone would just be living forever and it would be like increasing infinitely.
Even worse.
Everything
You're right. Worse. Yes, everything would be frozen. Okay, if nothing in the universe deteriorated in any way and it was just all structure, it would be frozen. It would be like a perfect glass sculpture, just everything frozen. So what the Satan allows for, because the Satan is a trend in the universe that makes things deviate from their form and makes matter take on other forms, that's what allows the circle of life to happen. That's what allows a universe where things change and things come into being and pass away. You can't have things come into being without passing away or vice versa. So that's how you have stars that are created and then destroyed. That's how you have babies that are born, grow old, and die. That's how you have like trees growing. That's how you have, antelope being eaten by lions and stuff like that. The Satan is what makes possible a universe of coming into being and passing away. Okay, and that is that's what the Satan's job description is. Okay, so just to now put it into Chazal's terms, okay, so Satan again means to deviate. According to my understanding, that's the phenomenon. Okay, but there are two manifestations of Satan. Okay, one is in the universe as a whole. Okay, the Satan is referring to all instances of physical degradation, corruption, decay, destruction, death, deterioration, falling apart. And that's what we call the malach hamaves. Okay, it is the agent of death or the law of entropy. Okay, again, entropy is like death in terms of physical matter. So it's the law of nature that is responsible for there being degradation and deterioration. And in the human being, we said, what does the Satan do in a human being? How do you describe its function in the human being? In form and matter terms?
The human matter is constantly deviating from the sun.
Exactly, right? So in man, the Satan is the tendency of man's physicality, meaning the body, instincts, desires, emotions, personality, to deviate from your form or your true definition, which is the Tselem Elokim. So when you talk about that, we call it the Yetzer Hara. So it's all the same thing. In other words, it's Satan just means the tendency of matter to deviate from form. When you're talking about everything outside of man in the universe, or outside even with man's body, but you're talking about, say all in the universe, it's entropy. And when you're talking about in the human being with free will, it's talking about the Yetzer Hara, and that's why we call it the Yetzer Hara. And that's why you have three names for it. Is Satan is the deviator, okay, or the cause of deviation. That's the abstract definition. Yetzer Hara is how it expresses itself in man, and Malach Hamaves is how it expresses itself in the universe. And by the way, hopefully now you're starting to realize, I don't know how many of you picture the Malach Hamaves as like the Grim Reaper, but he's invisible kind of, going around like killing people. Like that's not what we mean by Malach Hamaves. We mean entropy. Okay. Okay, any questions about this for now? I mean, obviously, again, we're going to be talking about this for a while.
Yeah, I have a question. So
yes.
Entropy sometimes, like, I won't use the word entropy actually. Like, doesn't like disorder sometimes cause good things to happen?
Yes, and that's
because of the randomness.
Exactly, and so a good example of that is in evolution, right? That we talked about earlier, is that you have random mutations, and then some of those mutations are advantageous, and then that allows those particular organisms to survive and pass on their genes, and that's really good. So that is another way in which randomness, and also this is probably, again, I don't understand like planetary, I don't understand astrophysics, but I imagine that the Satan is also why you have many different kinds of planets and moons and stuff. Like Jupiter's moons are all different, like it's randomness that results in variety, and so that is good. And that's why there's a midrash that says, there's a lot of midrash on at the end of the sixth day of creation, when it says that God saw that everything was very good. So the question is, what is the word very adding? Like ma'od. So Rabbi Meir says ma'od is referring to death, because death is good. And when he says death, what he means is the Satan and the phenomenon of death, that causes death, that is good for the universe as a whole. And that's why everything Hashem made is good, including the Satan. It's just when an organism dies, it's bad for that organism, but for the universe, it's very good. Okay. Okay, so now let's revisit our mashal and just make sure we understand this here. So it happened one day that the angels came to station themselves before Hashem, and the Satan also came. Yeah, sorry. So this, I guess I just never showed you the Malbim inside. That's why I'm putting it here. So we said, what is the mashal of the angels stationing themselves before Hashem? What does that refer to?
Aligning themselves with God's will.
Yeah, and what is the angels again?
Natural laws of nature.
Forces of nature, right? So here's what I did not quote this. Yeah, so that's the first part, right? Is the angels are all perfectly arrayed before Hashem. Okay, but then the Satan, here's the Malbim, by the way. This is just my English translation of the Malbim. We are then told that the Satan, which is the tendency of matter towards entropy, the source of all ra, deterioration, privation, sin, negation, and harm, also came among them. Okay. The Rambam, this is the Malbim quoting the Rambam. The Rambam explained that it did not say the angels and the Satan came together to stand before Hashem, because that would imply that the existence of both of them is of the same order and relation. Rather, it said the Satan also came among them. The Satan is not, in fact, one who stands before Hashem, since it is not a component part of the creation, but rather an added negative entropic trend. Okay, meaning that's what I was using in the job description analogy. That all the rest of the universe gives structure to the universe, but the Satan breaks down structure or causes matter to deviate from one structure and go to another one. So it is a law of nature. That's why we call it a malach, but it is destructive rather than like preservative or constructive or structural, if you want to put it that way. Although
what is the Hebrew of this?
I'll show you the Hebrew after this. It's a lot easier to put it into modern terms. Let me show you this, and then I'll go to the Hebrew. Although the Satan is not one of the angels, he comes among them because he is crucial to the regulation of material existence. This is because, as the Rambam explained, material existence is predicated on a process of destruction and flux. That's what I was talking about, of going into being and passing away, and the continuous acquisition of new forms and shapes. So that's actually the end of the PowerPoint. Let me just show you in the Hebrew, just so you can see it. Yeah, because it's very modern sounding, right? Okay, let me share this. I was assisted, by the way. What I did is I took the English translation of the Malbim that I bought, and then I just modified it to make it flow smoother. Okay, so we're going to read the same thing that I just read. Oh my, do they not have the Malbim? Oh, they do. Okay, good. All right. So he says like this. Okay. Kvar bir harambam ki kol haraus bein klalios bein pratios bein baim elam mitzad hachomer. So this is what we just read. This is actually a little bit more than I translated on the PowerPoint. The Rambam already explained that all raos, right, all evils, privations, lacks, whether in general or in particular, come from matter. Right, so that's what we spent the last two sessions talking about. Kol hagashmim hovim v'nifsadim. All physical things come into being and pass away. Lo yasigim hefsed rak mitzad hachomer. The only loss or deterioration they suffer is because of their matter. Aval mitzad hatzura, but because of their form, ubichinas etzam hatzura, and because of the essential form, lo yasigim hefsed rakim omdim. Their form does not cause them any loss or deterioration; it preserves them. Amnam yasika hefsed lutsura b'mikre. It only achieves, gets lost from its form accidentally. In other words, things only deteriorate because they are attached to matter, because form is attached to matter. The teva hachomer, and the nature of matter, v'amitaso, and its reality, shehu lo yimalet olam michevras ha'edar. It is always attached to privation. Matter is always attached to lack. Okay, yifshot tzura v'yalbesh tzura. It takes off a form and then takes on a form. Acheres tamid, constantly. Uber sham, and the Rambam explained there, ki kol hashchasa v'hefsed o chestron o mipasa chomer. Oh, hold on a second here. Okay, I'm just going to read this in English so you can see it here. It's easier for me because this is tough Hebrew. The Rambam already explained that all corruption and loss or deficiency comes on account of matter. For example, a person who is deformed in his form, okay, and his limbs deviate from their nature, whether due, and likewise any weakness of his action or their ceasing of function or their confusion. There's no difference whether this is because whether he was born this way or because of something new that happened to him. It only is a result of his deficient matter. Lo achar tzuraso, not because of his form. Same thing with every living being. Amnam yamos v'yechala, he will die. Yamus v'yechala, he will die and become sick. Mivnei chomer shelo, because of his matter. And all of a person's sins, v'chatav, and his transgressions, nimshachim achar chomer shelo, come after his form. Uma'alosav kulam, this is what we read today. His virtues, all of them, nimshachim achar tzuraso, come from his form. Lamashal hasagaso esboro, his comprehension of his creator. V'tziro kol hamuskal, and his ability to conceive of any concept. V'hanagas taivosav, and his governing his desires. V'kaso, and his anger. V'istaklo ma shetzarech livchor bo u'b'meh shetzarech l'rachgo, and his choices about what he should pursue and avoid. All these come from his form. But his food and his drink and his copulation, vrov tavosav, and his what do you call it? His desires, behen v'kaso, and his anger, v'klit mida. I think this is a typo. Kol mida ra. I think all of his bad midos. Shtimsabo hakonim shachar chomer. All these come after his form. Okay, now we get to what we just read now. Al pizeh sefer ki bnei ha'elohim shem kochos hanimtzaim b'chol abriya shehim banav u'masayadav. So the Bnei Elohim, the angels, which are the forces that are found throughout the creation, which are like the not literal offspring, but like the offshoots and work of God's hands. Baal lizyatev Hashem. They came to stand before Hashem. Shemitzad shu Hashem, because since Hashem, He is Hashem. Mehave umamti kol mitzius yisyatzu bnei Elohim hakochos kulamo. God causes the existence of all of these angels. Ki kiyum hamitzius hibria masmedas, because the preservation of existence is a continual creation. Now, here's what we just read. That's what I'm translating as entropic trend, the force of negation. Okay, shu mikor hara, which is the source of privation or evil. V'hafsed and loss, v'chet and sin, v'chol bitul v'nezek, and any negation or harm. Hu b'socham, it is among them. Ukvar be'er hamor, and the Rambam explained, shelo amar v'yavo b'nei ha'elohim v'hasatan l'hisyativ. It doesn't say that the b'nei ha'elohim and the Satan came to stand. Sh'az, because that Haya mashar shematius shneim hu al erech echad v'yichus echad would say that their existence is on one level in relation. Rak amar shabab b'socham. It says He came among them. Kilu hu lo bab etzem v'rishona l'hisyativ Hashem. It's not like He came to stand primarily in front of Hashem. Kihu ein lo shoresh b'havaya. He doesn't have any root in being, in existence. Rak behedar v'hefsed, only in privation and lack. Rak shu shabab b'socham, but He came among them. Achar shehu tanai L'bnei Elohim, because He's a precondition for the angels, hatachtonim, for the lower beings, rotzalomer hakochos hachomrim, namely material forces. Shelo timsa havaya b'bali hachomer mibli hadar kodem la, because you will not find any coming into being in material things without privation that comes before it. Sheposhet surah velovish surah, that it takes off, it dawns a form and takes off a form. V'hu kabanush al kol koach mikokos maseh breshis. Okay, so that's all we read today. So you see, by the way, why I'm not having you do this in Hebrew. It's so much harder in Hebrew than in English, and but the English that I read is I think a good translation of it. So yeah. Okay, that was a lot. I think that's probably the most important Iyov class that we will have in terms of understanding the book. Everything we have will be a development of this. So if you didn't understand anything here, not anything, if you didn't understand parts of this here, think about it. And we're going to be talking about it a lot. So you'll have many other opportunities to like clarify your ideas here. Okay, but that's like the main concept. Alrighty. Okay, so enjoy your day, your snow day tomorrow. Hopefully, I don't know about you, I don't have to go anywhere. I'm hoping we get a lot of snow. Weather models are looking favorable, but you know what's going to be, is going to be dependent on the Satan, right? Little factors of matter deviating from form that are going to be responsible for either a southern shift of the weather patterns, which will bring all the snow into Long Island and like where we are, or a northern shift or a dry spot. It's you can blame the Satan. Okay, if things
or maybe the laws of nature.
Or maybe it's an interaction, right? It's all a cooperation of the laws of nature and the random material factors. Yep. Okay. Have a good rest of the day and a happy Hanukkah.
You too. You too.